Mets fans, we're back at it with our second video of the day, our second breaking news segment of the day, all regarding the Mets and their coaching staff. And I broke down each and every one of you just mere hours ago in our discussion on the official hire of Troy Snitker being now the Mets hitting coach moving forward to pair with Jeff Albert, that as long as the Mets make sure that Antoan Richardson doesn't go anywhere, I won't crash out or have a reaction, because Richardson was the lone coach in this 2025 staff in which everybody and their mother wanted to return, and for a great reason. And here we have breaking news from Jeff Passan as I am just waddling my little butt in CVS. What do I see? Bam! The New York Mets and first base coach Antoan Richardson have not come to terms on a new contract, and Richardson is expected to leave the organization, sources tell ESPN. Richardson was lauded for his great work there with Mets base runners and will seek another job when his contract expires. So I told each and every one of you over the past week and a half, 2 weeks, that if Antoan Richardson and the Mets did not agree to a new contract, that I was going to have quite the reaction. I was not going to hold anything back either. And I know you may say to yourself, Wardy, this is just a first base coach. Why are you going to get your you-know-what's and twist about it? My counter is that while, yes, he is a first base coach, to think that he didn't have a positive impact on this organization the past year, and to think that he will not be, at least to a degree, sorely missed, is absolutely foolish, and here's why. The Mets had a stolen base percentage last year of a success rate of 89+%, the best in MLB for the most part. They also set a MLB record for a highest stolen base success rate in a single season at 89.1 that we saw. 147 out of 165 potential stolen bags were stolen by these Mets. The gap between them and the second best team was the Chicago Cubs at 82.1%, was greater than the gap between the Cubs and the 25th ranked Astros at 75.2%. So the point here is that the Mets were simply in a class no other team was even close to when it comes to brilliant stolen bases. All, mind you, while doing this without a fast roster, one of the slowest, if not the slowest rosters in Major League Baseball. Your first year with Juan Soto, mind you, that Antoan Richardson gets a chance to work with. And what does he do? Help Juan Soto steal a career best, far and away, more than double he's ever had, that being at a whopping 38. And as I broke down this very platform just a mere couple weeks ago to each and every one of you, wasn't that long ago, I played the clip of Juan Soto attributing all of his success with his base running to Antoan Richardson. So on one hand, you say to yourself, yes, a first base coach is far from everything, especially in what was a failure of a year for the Mets who did not make playoffs. That is true. At the same time, in the same breath, we can say how valuable Antoan Richardson was with his brilliant base running awareness for this Mets team to get the best out of these guys in more ways than one, including Juan Soto, in ways that we simply were never even fathoming would ever happen in a Mets uniform, let alone his first year as a New York Met. To see how much he was appreciated by this entire organization, yet maybe not to a degree with this front office, is now why we've reached the unfortunate reality that it looks like Antoan Richardson is going to be a one and done or a two and done or so as a year manager here with the New York Mets. And when I say manager, I mean first base coach. And what frustrates me even more about this, just when looking at the initial gut reaction to this, I'm going to talk about both sides here and why it makes sense to a degree, and ultimately why it doesn't make sense, and certainly why I'm really bothered by it, if I'm being honest with you. And another factor in this was Kai Correa, the Mets' new first base coach. I can't even talk right now. I'm all over the place. I apologize. The Mets' new bench coach that they recently hired from the Guardians over the past week to 2 weeks now, he was with Antoan Richardson for 3 years there under the Gabe Kapler regime and their coaching staff. So you're excited about that rekindling of a relationship. You're excited about the fact that what Antoan Richardson did this past year, yes, it was an anomaly of a year for the Mets, so we can kind of look at this to a degree in a way of how the Mets got the absolute best out of guys like, what I believe, Harrison Freeland, who is the man who's made sure that Buck has been right on the money with challenges going back to that 2022 season, right? That was an anomaly of a year for the Mets. They were far and away the best team in baseball and their challenge success rate, and it was just absurd. It was something over another, it worked, and it was fantastic. That was kind of the vibe we got this year with Antoan Richardson and his great base running approach for this Mets offense, and that's why they were steadily in such a greater divide from everyone else and their efficiency and their base running. They didn't have the most stolen bases in all of baseball this year, but they were top 5 in that regard. And as we just mentioned here, they were the most effective. So Antoan Richardson had his paws all over that. Juan Soto said verbatim, it's all thanks to him. So let's talk about how this came to be from both sides of the coin here. Let's go through every potential reason as well as why we've now gone to this outcome. And it starts with the obvious factor. The Mets just had a failure of a season in many ways under the eyes of Steve Cohen. And Steve Cohen, who had previously valued guys like Jeremy Hefner more importantly in years past in this organization, had even reached that end after this season, telling you that he did not have much bias one way or another with this entire coaching staff. And I'm sure to a degree, David Stearns may have actually went to bat to a level of degree to make sure that Carlos Mendoza wasn't going anywhere after his first, year of not making playoffs as Mets manager, as a first-time manager, but also the David Stearns hire. So you look at the Steve Cohen reaction to all of this, and you say to yourself, okay, Steve, we all know that you know the numbers, and David, we all know that you know the numbers as well. How do we get to the point that bringing back Antoan Richardson is not a priority? Is this because, A, the Mets are beyond comfortable with their strategists that they have in their front office that help relay information to make Antoan Richardson what he was here for the New York Mets? Not that Antoan was by any means a bad first base coach back when he was with the San Francisco Giants, but he never had this kind of season to this drastic degree as a coach that he just had with the New York Mets. So are the Mets banking on the fact that this was an anomaly of a year, that they're going to be able to get people who are now going to be put in that position to be more than fine in said position because they have the trust in not only what the front office is relaying down to the coaching staff, as well as bringing in someone here that maybe they just like a little bit of a different feel from Richardson, who maybe they feel already peaked with him and are going to be looking to see if Richardson is someone who may want a greater role elsewhere coming off of a fantastic career year coaching-wise for him. I think all these things can be true to a degree, right? You think of Steve Cohen, does he have a stubbornness to maybe not want to fully run it back with Richardson more in the losing ways? It could happen, and it could be one that I don't necessarily agree with because I don't. Richardson was far from the problem. He was one of the main success stories, if not the main success story for this entire collective coaching staff. He was the lone standout in the best way possible this past calendar season. So you look at the Mets' point of view and why they would go the lengths to not maybe go bend over backwards to bring back Antoan Richardson if they feel that they have the right people in the front office that can relay the information, so whoever is next as first base coach can basically go in there seamlessly, and the Mets are going to continue this great base running philosophy. Because let's also bear something in mind. Is it easy to believe that Antoan Richardson didn't relay the message well to the players and other aspects of the coaching staff, including Mendoza, who are obviously not going anywhere as of now, or they wouldn't be able to pick things up? To think, oh, if say Antoan is out for a day because of an illness or whatever, that they wouldn't be able to have a proper approach there? I'm led to believe that common sense tells you that the Mets already had a great understanding in how Antoan's approach was with first base and what the success was this past year. It's hard to believe that there are not immediate players and other coaching personnel in this organization that wouldn't have been able to at least been to a degree a sponge of everything that he was doing right and relaying to this entire player staff to make them have the success rate that they did. So these are all things to go benefit the doubt. We're going to play devil's advocate for David Stearns and Steve Cohen, as well as the obvious factor, Antoan Richardson is coming off of a career year as a coach. Because of that, it's more than likely a situation where he's coming off of a year where he needs to be sold by the Mets and Steve Cohen to return at a higher AAV for himself, rightfully so. He deservedly so is looking for the bag. And that's not that Steve Cohen cannot bestow that upon him, but Steve might not have the same level of an appetite, or maybe David doesn't, given the fact that the Mets still did not have the success that they were looking for, and they think that this was kind of an anomaly of a circumstance. Again, do I personally agree with that? Not entirely, no. And I'm more bothered by Richardson being parted with by this organization this rate than anything else, because while a first base coach is not everything, and the Mets can certainly try to mold something good, if not greater there potentially, that's a big question mark for a team that already has so many question marks heading into next season. This felt like the lone certainty that even if, say, Richardson had a little bit of a slump, if you will, as a coach in the 2026 season, it's hard to envision that would be a complete 180 on the base running front from what the Mets just did this past year. And I firmly believe that whoever the Mets do put in that position for next season, that they're still going to have base running success, but this feels like an absolute miss by Steve Cohen and David David Stern should they allow this man to walk. It's hard to believe otherwise because of how much of a positive standout he was on Juan Soto in this entire organization. There's really no other ways of putting it other than just simply being very disappointed, frustrated, and depending on how much of a diehard, fairly pissed off to see this actually now look like it's going to come to fruition. When it was first thrown out there over the past 2 weeks by Will Salmon of The Athletic, he did make a note that it was around 50-50 on the potential of Antoan Richardson returning to the New York Mets. But now it's not more than likely not going to happen. That's why he's expected to leave per Jeff Passan, as you guys see here. So for Antoan, is he also looking for an opportunity that's greater than first base coach, riding high in the fact of the great success he had with the Mets offense this year? And is he trying to be a bench coach? This is something that I am pondering, and this is what's in part making me not go a full crash out here, just because, again, I'm trying to play devil's advocate while also completely understanding I'm not happy with this decision. I'm really just not only frustrated, but disappointed that's come about this way. The one guy I was begging, dying to return to this team, it isn't happening. But is it possible? Is there a world where Antoan Richardson is leaving the organization because maybe he wanted to move up and there wasn't a move up available for him? Is that potential? Is that the circumstance here? Kai Correa was doing great when it came to field work and base running work, among other things, with the Cleveland Guardians this past year. Is it at all possible that Kai Correa coming in as bench coach could have deterred someone like Antoan if Antoan himself was hoping to be considered for an internal promotion? And if that were not to be the case, then maybe for Antoan, he says to himself, okay, not that I'm not valued here, but I feel like I could be valued more elsewhere than what's currently happening with the Mets. And especially if David Stearns and Steve Cohen aren't going out of their way to try to sign the guy heavily right away, because we know that money is not a factor with Steve. However, it still could be to a degree with David. This is what I'm pondering right now, just going through all the feasible possibilities as to how we got to this point, because the gut knee-jerk reaction to seeing Antoan Richardson being parted with is just despicable. You're really frustrated by it. I'm really pissed off by it. I can't really say anything else other than that. But going back to, again, for Antoan, if this is something that he thinks is best for him and his career and his family, is, let's face it, again, it wasn't an easy scene to be in Mets land this year, and I can completely understand maybe his lack of interest to stay here unless he really gets sold by David Stearns and Steve Cohen. You can't fault the guy. You know, we always go and react and say, oh my God, how dare Steve Cohen, how dare David Stearns make these decisions? But this is a two-way street when it comes to negotiations. And should this be more than just the dollar amount, which it may appear to be here, that's where you have to factor in Antoan and what is he seeing for his future. Now, should there be reporting that comes out later today or in the coming days that gives us more clarity as to how this came about, including details that are maybe contrary to some of the options I just laid it out for each and every one of you, then we'll hop right back on here. We'll break that down, and I will obviously correct myself for what I'm assuming are the potential outcomes as to how we got to this point, I should be saying. So all I really have to say to put a bow on it, to put a pin in it in regards to Antoan Richardson being parted with by this Mets organization at this rate is, one, I'm wishing Antoan the best. It's a bummer if he's the one more so making this decision that he just doesn't want to return. But this, unfortunately, is the reality, everybody, when you have a losing season in a big market where there was someone doing something right when everything else was going wrong. That needs to be credited for. That needs to be accounted for, because this is always the risk when you are a big market spender like Steve Cohen and now David Stearns leading the ship as president of baseball operations, to operate in a manner that is not at a consistent success rate, while their individual successes for these coaches, i.e. Antoan Richardson, it's not overly shocking that these guys have an appetite to part ways with the organization to either get more money or a more increased role elsewhere if they feel that maybe the value wasn't there. Because clearly, for one reason or another, barring reports that state the following, that this was all Antoan Richardson's decision. The Mets did everything in their power to bring him back, yet he decided to go elsewhere because he wanted an increased role in another organization. If that comes out, then I will come back here and say that I apologize for at all trying to give a dig in on David Stearns and or Steve Cohen. But for right now, we have every rightful reason to be reacting the way that we are. This was a very valuable piece to this coaching staff, and he'll be sorely missed for the immediate future. All I can say is that I hope it goes back to the start of the show here in today's video and the reasons as to why we got to this point, and that's the fact that the Mets are confident that the front office and the information that they've relayed to first base coach Antoan Richardson was the defining factor in his success this year, where it can really be anyone put in that position, they will have similar success. Should that be the case, I'm not losing sleep over this. Otherwise, it's going to be an absolute bummer, and we'll see what happens next for Antoan Richardson and where he lands for his future for 2026. Mets fans, let me know all your thoughts, reactions, if you're pissed off, if you're content, if you're actually happy with the decision, whatever the case may be, as Antoan Richardson, Mets' beloved first base coach, is expected to part ways here with the organization. He is now the second coach that was not officially cut by this Mets ownership and president of baseball operations over the past couple weeks, but was given the option to be part of it, basically, as Desi Drewskill left to go back to the Yankees. That was reported over the past 24 hours that we broke down earlier today, as well as now Antoan Richardson parting ways now with the organization. The only good thing that we've seen so far today, in my opinion, has been the news of the new Mets hitting coach, that being Troy Snitker. Check out our video that we dropped earlier today on that. Other than that, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Be on the lookout, because beginning in the 9th inning and then for the entirety of the post-game segment, around, I'd imagine, at least 15-20 minutes, I will be live in the Bleacher Report app there, breaking down my reaction to Game 3 of the World Series between, yes, you guessed it, the LA Dodgers and those Toronto Blue Jays. So excited. It's going to be a big show. It might be on their YouTube channel as well. So make sure you guys are tapping in. I'll be live reacting to it all here. And hopefully, unbiasedly speaking, I do hope it's a really, really good game of back and forth. Last of the pitchers, I would love to see a lot of offense between those two teams to see who bests another here in Game 3. But thank you guys again. I'll see you guys in Bleacher Report later today. Other than that, have a great rest of your night and evening. Whenever you're watching this, this is your guy Wardy signing out. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace.